I'm so excited to talk with you today about something that can completely change your English learning journey. We're going to explore one of the most powerful secrets that fluent English speakers use every single day, and it's something you can start doing right now. Are you ready? Let's dive into the amazing world of thinking in English. You know, when I first started learning languages myself, I made the same mistake that millions of learners make. I would hear English, translate it into my native language in my head, think of my response in my native language, and then translate it back to English before speaking. Wow, that sounds exhausting just saying it. And honestly, it was. It made conversations feel slow, awkward, and really frustrating. But here's the thing that changed everything for me. One day, I realized that fluent English speakers don't translate at all. They think directly in English. Their thoughts flow naturally in English words, English phrases, and English expressions. It's like their brain has switched to English mode completely. And that's exactly what we want to help you do today. Now, I know what you might be thinking. But how can I think in English when I don't know enough words yet? Or, my English isn't good enough for that. Listen, I totally understand those feelings. Every English learner has been exactly where you are right now. But here's a beautiful truth. You don't need perfect English to start thinking in English. You just need to begin with the English you already know. Let me share a story that might surprise you. I have a friend named Maria who came to the United States from Mexico 5 years ago. When she first arrived, she knew maybe 200 English words. That's it. But Maria was determined to become fluent, and she decided to try something bold. She started thinking in English using only those 200 words she knew. At first, her thoughts were very simple. Instead of thinking tengo hambre in Spanish, she would think, I am hungry in English. Instead of que hora es, she would think, what time is it? She couldn't think complex thoughts yet, but she was training her brain to operate in English. And you know what happened? After just 3 months of this practice, Maria told me that English thoughts started coming naturally. Her brain was getting comfortable with English as a thinking language. But here's the most amazing part of Maria's story. After 2 years of thinking in English every day, she became so fluent that people couldn't even tell English was her second language. She started dreaming in English. Can you imagine that? Her brain had become so comfortable with English that it even used English while she was sleeping. So, how exactly do you start thinking in English? Well, the beautiful thing is that it's much simpler than you might expect. You start small, with simple thoughts about your daily life. Right now, as you're listening to this, try thinking, I am listening to English. Don't translate it from your native language. Just think those English words directly. The key is to begin with present moment thinking. Look around you right now. What do you see? Instead of naming things in your native language, try thinking of the English words. I see a window. I see a chair. I see my phone. These are simple thoughts, but they're English thoughts coming directly from your brain without translation. Let's practice this together. Throughout your day, try to narrate what you're doing in simple English. When you wake up, think I am waking up. When you brush your teeth, think I am brushing my teeth. When you eat breakfast, think I am eating breakfast. These might seem like basic thoughts, but you're actually doing something incredible. You're rewiring your brain to operate in English. Now, let's talk about feelings and emotions, because this is where thinking in English becomes really powerful. Instead of feeling an emotion and naming it in your native language, try to identify it directly in English. When you're happy, think I feel happy or I am happy. When you're tired, think I feel tired. When you're excited about something, think I am excited. Here's something really interesting about emotions and language. When you start thinking about your feelings in English, you actually begin to connect with English on a deeper level. It's not just vocabulary and grammar anymore. It becomes the language of your inner world, your personal experiences, your real emotions. I remember another student I worked with, a young man named Ahmed from Egypt. He told me something fascinating after 6 months of thinking in English. He said, "You know, when I think in English now, I feel like a slightly different person. It's still me, but I express myself differently in English thoughts than in Arabic thoughts." This is actually very common. Different languages can bring out different aspects of your personality. Let's move on to a more advanced technique, English self-talk. This means having conversations with yourself in English throughout the day. I know it might sound a little crazy, but trust me, this is one of the most effective methods for developing fluent thinking. Here's how you can start. When you're making decisions during the day, have the conversation with yourself in English. For example, when you're choosing what to wear, you might think, "Should I wear the blue shirt or the white shirt today? Well, it's sunny outside, so maybe the white shirt is better. Yes, I'll wear the white shirt." Or when you're at the grocery store, you can think, "I need to buy some apples. These apples look fresh and delicious. How many should I buy? I think 5 apples are good for this week." The amazing thing about this self-talk practice is that you're not just thinking in English, you're actually having English conversations. You're asking yourself questions and answering them, just like you would in a real conversation with another person. Now, here's a challenge that many English learners face. What do you do when you don't know the English word for something you want to think about? This is where creativity becomes your best friend. Instead of switching back to your native language, try to describe the thing using English words you do know. For example, let's say you want to think about a refrigerator, but you can't remember that word. You could think the big white box that keeps food cold, or the cold food box in the kitchen. You're still thinking in English, and you're actually building your ability to explain and describe things, which is a super valuable skill for conversations. This technique is called circumlocution, and it's what native speakers do all the time when they can't remember a specific word. They describe it using other words. So when you do this in your English thinking, you're actually practicing a very natural, native-like skill. Let's talk about something really important, making mistakes in your English thinking. Here's some good news. It's completely okay to make grammar mistakes when you're thinking in English. The goal isn't perfect grammar at first. The goal is to get your brain comfortable with English as a thinking language. If you think, "I am go to the store" instead of "I am going to the store," that's perfectly fine for now. Your brain is learning, and with time and practice, the correct grammar will start coming naturally. Don't let fear of mistakes stop you from thinking in English. Remember, even native English speakers sometimes think in grammatically incorrect ways. I want to share another powerful technique with you. English commentary. This means describing what you see and what's happening around you, like you're a sports commentator or a narrator in a documentary. As you walk down the street, you might think, "I am walking on the sidewalk. There are many cars on the road. A woman with a red coat is walking her dog. The dog is small and brown." This commentary practice is incredible for building your English thinking skills because it forces you to process your environment directly in English. You're not translating what you see, you're describing it immediately in English as it happens. Now, let's explore thinking about the past and future in English. Once you're comfortable with present moment thinking, you can start expanding to other time periods. When you remember something from yesterday, try to think about it in English. Yesterday, I watched a good movie. It was about a family in Italy. I enjoyed it very much. For future thinking, you can plan your day in English. Tomorrow, I will wake up early. I will have breakfast with my family. Then I will go to work. After work, I will study English for 1 hour. This kind of future thinking in English helps you practice different verb tenses naturally. Here's something really exciting that happens when you start thinking in English regularly. You begin to dream in English. This usually happens after a few months of consistent English thinking practice. The first time you have an English dream, it feels amazing. It means your brain is so comfortable with English that it continues using it even while you sleep. But don't worry if you don't dream in English right away. Everyone's brain works differently, and some people start dreaming in their new language sooner than others. The important thing is to keep practicing your English thinking during the day. Let me tell you about the connection between thinking in English and speaking fluently. When you think in English, you're actually preparing your brain for English conversations. You're practicing the thought processes that happen before speaking. This means that when someone asks you a question in English, your brain is already in English mode, ready to respond naturally and quickly. I've noticed that students who practice English thinking speak much more naturally than students who always translate. Their responses sound more genuine, more spontaneous, and more confident. This is because their thoughts are already in English, so they're just sharing what they're already thinking rather than creating new English sentences on the spot. One of my favorite techniques for advanced English thinking is emotional storytelling. This means thinking through your experiences and emotions in English, like you're telling a story to a close friend. When something interesting happens in your day, try to process it mentally in English. For example, if you had a challenging day at work, you might think, "Today was really difficult. My boss gave me a lot of extra work and I felt overwhelmed. But then my colleague Sarah offered to help me, and that made me feel so much better. I'm grateful to have such kind people at my workplace." This kind of emotional storytelling in English does something beautiful. It makes English the language of your personal experiences. It's no longer just a language you use for studying or formal situations. It becomes the language of your inner life. Here's a question I get asked a lot. How long does it take to start thinking naturally in English? Well, the answer depends on how much you practice, but most of my students notice changes within the first month. They start having random English thoughts pop into their heads, especially about things they've been practicing. After 3 to 6 months of regular practice, English thinking becomes much more automatic. And after a year of consistent English thinking practice, many students tell me that English has become their dominant thinking language for certain topics or situations. But remember, this isn't a competition or a test. There's no pressure to think in English perfectly or all the time. The goal is simply to give your brain more practice with English as a tool for thinking and processing the world around you. Let's talk about some common challenges you might face and how to overcome them. The first challenge is feeling frustrated when you can't express complex thoughts in English. This is completely normal. Remember, you're learning a new way of thinking. Start with simple thoughts and gradually build complexity as your English vocabulary grows. Another challenge is the temptation to switch back to your native language when thinking gets difficult. This is natural, but try to resist this temptation. Instead, simplify your thought or find a different way to express it in English. Even if the thought isn't perfect, You're still exercising your English thinking muscles. Some students worry that thinking in English will make them forget their native language. This fear is understandable, but let me assure you, learning to think in English will not damage your native language abilities. Your brain is incredibly capable of managing multiple languages. In fact, many bilingual people report that thinking in multiple languages actually makes their minds more flexible and creative. Now, let's explore how English thinking can improve other aspects of your English learning. When you think in English regularly, your listening comprehension improves because your brain is already operating in English. You don't need to translate what you hear. You can understand it directly. Your reading also becomes faster and more enjoyable. Instead of translating each sentence as you read, you can follow the text naturally, just like you would in your native language. And your writing becomes more natural too, because you're expressing thoughts that are already in English rather than translating from another language. Here's a practical exercise you can try right now. For the next 10 minutes, try to think only in English. Start by thinking about where you are and what you're doing. Then think about your plans for today. Think about someone you love and why they're important to you. Think about a happy memory from your childhood. Don't worry about perfect grammar or complex vocabulary. Just let your thoughts flow in English. How did that feel? Some parts probably felt easier than others, and that's perfectly normal. The topics and ideas that felt easier are areas where your English thinking is already developing. The harder parts show you where you can focus your practice. I want to share one more inspiring story with you. I had a student named Yuki from Japan who was very shy about speaking English. She was afraid of making mistakes, so she rarely participated in conversations. But Yuki was dedicated to practicing English every day. After 4 months of thinking in English, something amazing happened. Yuki came to class one day and participated actively in all our discussions. Her English wasn't perfect, but it was natural, confident, and expressive. When I asked her what had changed, she said, "I realized that I already have English conversations in my head all day. Speaking with others is just sharing those thoughts out loud." This is the power of thinking in English. It builds your confidence because you're already comfortable with English as a language of thought and expression. When you speak, you're not creating new English. You're just sharing the English that's already in your mind. As we wrap up our conversation today, I want to leave you with some final encouragement. Learning to think in English is one of the most rewarding parts of your English learning journey. It's not just about language skills. It's about expanding your mind and giving yourself new ways to experience and understand the world. Every time you choose to think in English instead of translating, you're making an investment in your future fluency. Every English thought, no matter how simple, is building the foundation for natural, confident English communication. Remember, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to think complex thoughts right away. You just have to begin. Start with simple present moment observations. Practice English self-talk throughout your day. Be patient with yourself as your brain learns this new skill. And most importantly, celebrate your progress. The first time you catch yourself thinking automatically in English, take a moment to appreciate what you've accomplished. Your brain is learning, growing, and becoming more flexible every day. The journey to thinking in English is really a journey to English fluency itself. When English becomes the language of your thoughts, it stops being a foreign language you're studying and becomes a natural part of who you are. And that transformation is absolutely beautiful to experience. So starting right now, as you go about your day, Try to think in English as much as you can. Be curious about your thoughts. Be kind to yourself when it's challenging. And remember that every English thought brings you closer to the fluent, confident English speaker you want to become. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope you feel inspired and excited to start your English thinking practice. Remember, you have everything you need to begin right now. Your English learning journey is unique and beautiful, and I believe in your ability to achieve your goals. Keep practicing, keep growing, and keep thinking in English.